Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back with another weekly astrology update. This is episode 267. I'm coming in hot. So this week I want to talk about Uranus in Gemini. It came in fast and flighty on July 7th, Saturn stationing retrograde on Sunday, July 13th in Aries at 2:07 a.m. On Friday, April 18th, Mercury stations retrograde in Leo, 12:44 a.m. Venus in Gemini will sextile Mercury retrograde in Leo, 9:36 a.m. Sunday the 20th at 9:59 p.m. Mars in Virgo will go opposite the North Node. Monday the 21st at 9:20 p.m. Venus in Gemini will square the nodes. Tuesday the 22nd, we will move into Leo season. On next week's episode, I will talk about Leo season a little bit more, as well as the new moon in Leo that's happening next week. I know I haven't been around, but I was down visiting my sister for 8 days. My mother is staying down there for now until she comes back up here, so I've had a little break. So I was visiting family. I hope everyone has been doing well with those transits in between. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is the very beginning is how sometimes we're never sure, right? Like on this podcast, I talk about the awareness, the self-awareness, the different ways that the astrology will show up. But when it shows up in a different way, with myself, I like to share it with you guys to give you guys some perspective, because it's not always this, grandiose, like spiritual way. Sometimes it shows up in very tiny, tiny ways. So like I said, I was away for a week down south visiting my sister. I want to share one of the ways that Jupiter in Cancer and Mars in Virgo have shown up for me. So I have a Venus in Cancer and I have a Virgo rising and a moon in Virgo. So that's the first house, the moon, that is my body. So first, some of you might know I get sun poisoning from the sun without getting sunburnt, and it only really happens when I'm too close to the equator. It started 4 years ago, and I spend a lot of time close to the equator, whether it's the islands or Costa Rica or whatever. Normally after day 4, I wear a UV shirt, or I stay under an umbrella and I'm okay. I maybe get a little bit here and there. That's it. Well, Jupiter had moved into Cancer, conjunct my Venus, and then Mars at the same time moved into Virgo and conjunct my moon and the South Node. I broke out into the biggest sun poisoning, especially right as Mars conjunct my moon. And remember, I got Venus with Jupiter there in the moon sign, conjunct my moon, the biggest sun poisoning I have ever got. And I didn't get burned once when I was down there. I was wearing 70. Bigger than the first time I ever got it, which was Key West 4 years ago. So with Jupiter, it brings large, it brings multiple, it brings abundance, but that isn't always the abundance that we like, just an FYI. And Mars, it brings sort of burns, rashes, scrapes, cuts, those type of things. So I just, again, wanted to share one of the simple ways it showed up. I was like, damn, I should have been more protective, because I forgot my UV shirt, and where we were at my sister's, at her pool, at the public pools, there was literally no shade. No shade. No one goes into any umbrellas or shade down there. And I'm just healing from it. So remember that, especially having Mars in the first house. When Mars transits your first house, and if you have any planets there, it can bring those sort of, those burns, those rashes. And with Jupiter, it expanded. I'm telling you, it was worse than the first time I ever had it. It was insane, and it's finally healing. Now today, Wednesday, here's some other news and why I didn't come back last week with the podcast episode. I am switching salons. I have known this for about 3 months. I gave my bosses a 2 months advance, but I just announced it. And today, literally today, Wednesday, the 16th, is my first day at Capelli Salon, conveniently across the street from Capriati Salon. I am so grateful, let me just say, to be at Capriati Salon for the last 10 and a half years. It's been an amazing place to grow, to laugh. My bosses, they're old Italians. They've been incredible. They didn't micromanage me. They've let me do what I wanted to do, which is what I do. That's a Gemini way. Like, I only work for people who let me do what I want to do. And I'm a good employee. I'm a good worker. So you won't regret it. And they never regretted it. But it was time to move on nonetheless. And it was the most peaceful salon transition I have ever had. It was beautiful. It was sad. I think about all the life I had in 10 and a half years. when I started there, Abram was only a year old. I had another kid. I had 2 husbands, 2 boyfriends. I moved twice, 3 times. It just is sort of wild. And for me, you know, we spend so much time at work, and processing it with the amazing people at the salon has really been the nostalgic part. But again, nevertheless, I'm jumping into a new place. I'm excited. So for those of you who get your hair done by me, you can still text me, message me for your appointments. I can put you right in. Or if you would like, you can call Capelli's Salon in Narberth. I don't have the number right offhand, but you can look it up. But either way, it's probably better just to text me or message me. Now, conveniently, this is happening as Uranus literally transits into my 10th house of Gemini. So when this all began, when something sort of transpired that finally got me to make the move, it all was aligned. It was really, really crazy with my own chart. Beginning back in Pisces season with the retrogrades and they conjunct North Node, and everything has been effortless. Like, you know, you are on the right path and you know you're headed in the right direction when you meet no resistance. Now, sometimes you're on the right path and there's still resistance, but when there's a ton of resistance, you might want to rethink your path, right? There's something trying to stop it, but there has been zero resistance, zero. So I know I'm headed right to where I'm about to be. So I want to talk about Uranus and Gemini right now, starting with that. So here's the first thing I want to say. Uranus brings shocking, sudden, sometimes chaotic surprises, and again, out of nowhere. Now, in the fixed sign of Taurus, it's the ones were more permanent in Taurus, that very fixed sign, the more fixed outcome of what had occurred, especially for my fixed placements, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius. Things weren't really changeable once they had transpired. So once that twist of fate happened, it wasn't really changeable. Now, in Gemini, the mutable, flexible sign, this sudden change can come on like, you know, it feels very permanent, but at the end, the changing or shifting can also switch into a whole other dramatic or dynamic way, very Gemini-like way, especially, you know, almost exactly opposite of how sudden change had started out. There will be more wiggle room for forgiveness, return, and shifting from the sudden change as opposed to in Taurus. Again, something changed in Taurus with Uranus. That's it. That was how the direction was, the fixed. This, like I said, Geminis, it can go one way or the other, and it's very mutable. So you may think the change has happened, and then it may change back into another direction. It may go somewhere else. Or if it's a hard change that seems permanent, don't rely on it. It may switch out for the better for you. So I know there's been a lot of not so good stuff online about Uranus and Gemini, but I think Uranus and Gemini is going to be much better than Uranus in Taurus is, personally. So obviously my mutable placements are going to be feeling this the biggest over the next 7 years. Uranus will be in Gemini until May 22nd, 2033. However, we're not totally free yet of Uranus in Taurus. Taurus is not totally free from Uranus. On November 8th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus and will remain there until April 26th of 2026, when it will re-enter Gemini, and then it will remain in Gemini until 2033. Uranus first entered Taurus on May 15th, 2018. If you're wondering how that played out for you in your birth chart and what that looks like, where Taurus is in your natal birth chart and what house does Taurus rule. Also, look where Uranus is in your natal birth chart to get a deeper understanding of your birth chart, like what the house means, the sign, the different ways that this showed up in your life. Researching your own birth chart will really expand your mind and basically be a fundamental tool to teaching you astrology just by focusing on how your own birth chart manifested into reality. So really, look back at these last 7 years, look into your birth chart, where's Taurus, where's Uranus, and then combine that with what happened over the last 7 years. I mean, I did it myself and I was like, whoa, holy shit. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a lot of evolution through. It was in my 9th house and I have Uranus in my 5th house. So I started the transit with a husband that I married after 2 months and ended it with another boyfriend where I've been all over the world with. So, and a lot of actually compounding things in relationships for me have happened on trips, which is interesting because, again, I had Uranus was transiting my 9th house and I have a natal Uranus in the 5th house. But I'm not going to get so much into the chart, but definitely look into that, into your birth chart, study it, and you'll get an even deeper understanding. Like I said, if you really want to know astrology, pay attention to everything I say, other podcasts read, but look at your own birth chart and you will get a deeper understanding of how things show up. Uranus becomes more personal when it interacts with your own natal planets. Uranus is a collective planet, and since it's an outer planet, and when you see Uranus transiting any other outer planets or the classic 7, you will see it on the collective. However, when Uranus interacts with your natal planets, it will become more personal, and those sudden changes will manifest into a reality, if that makes sense. So for now, that is just a little tidbit. Obviously, as its transits continue, we will be talking about it. I just, wanted to go over the basics so you guys get an understanding so we can compound the future as these transits happen. So remember, Uranus brings shocking, sudden, swift changes that seem to come out of nowhere. There's some chaos there. There's some electric energy. There's some high energy. There's some strong energy to get stuff done. Things come on strong and they leave just as strongly. This is a plot twist planet or a page turner planet. Almost similar to the nodes sometimes, right? They're the ones that drop, the nodes drop little tidbits that then change your future. But it changes, the plot changes, but in your future, your chapters, but in a very quick, sudden way. But like I said, it's not going to be as permanent as every change that had happened while in Taurus. So Gemini, let's talk about that because it's going to be in Gemini, ruled by Mercury, the thinker, the communicator, the observer, the understander, the fast mover that's always on to the next. So whatever that next may be, it's often a little bit fun, or it's able to shift. Gemini placements can shift better than anyone I know. They can shift, pivot with whatever's in front of them and just handle it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm kind of liking Uranus in this planet. So my mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, you guys are going to be feeling this the most. And then we will obviously be feeling it on the collective level, especially when it interacts with other outer planets. So combine those things and get lots of awareness. This is going to be, this transit for a lot of people, especially those mutable signs, will be combined those things in your mind and your birth chart. Lots of sudden awareness, my friend. Now let's talk about Saturn stationing retrograde in the sign of Aries. Retrograde is when the planet slows down so much. From our point of view, it looks like it's going backwards, but it is slowing down almost to the point of stopping. It's said that more of the malefic planets like Saturn in retrograde will yield more benefic results. That's what they say with retro. And I've noticed it myself with Saturn and Mars, the malefic, they end up sort of being a little bit benefic. And I think that it's a deep time for reflections, especially for my Pisces and other mutable signs. And then for my Aries and cardinal signs, it's the beginning. So the reflection for Aries and other cardinal placements, what has showed up for you during this time? We're still going to be in this phase until September. So my cardinal placements, Aries, Capricorn, Libra, Cancer, what has showed up for you starting in May up until September 1st? Pay attention, write it down. Sometimes it's just these tiny, tiny little shifts that will actually become much bigger while Saturn enters the sign of Aries and stays there for 2 direct years. Now, for my Pisces and other mutable placements, this retrograde will bring Saturn back into Pisces for one last time for 30 years. It will only be there for a few months. So it's a reflection on how do we end this transit, reflection on what occurred over the last 2.5 years. Where's your mental and emotional standing? And does this need to be elevated? Where in your life do you need to elevate deeper? It's like one last chance to reflect. And so I don't think this is going to be hard stuff. I feel like my Saturn, my mutable placements have already gone through most of it, but it's sort of like one last dip back in to say, hey, have you learned the Saturn lessons? Hey, are you sure this is the path you want to take forward? Hey, is there something you need to reflect back on to change one last time before I move out of here and I'm on to Aries? So pay attention to that. And we're going to talk more because Saturn will ingress back into Pisces on September 1st. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, the next big thing on this episode I'm going to talk about is Mercury retrograde in Leo, which stations retrograde on Friday, the 18th at 12:44 a.m. at 15 degrees. We love the 15 degree. That's actually one of the best degrees that can happen. And we'll station direct on August 11th, my sister's birthday, at 4 degrees Leo. And she is a Leo, so she's been asking me all about her horoscope. So this Leo season is going to be coupled with a Mercury retrograde in Leo. Fixed signs, Y'all are going to be feeling this the most. Here's the general, though, for everyone and even my fixed signs. When Mercury is retrograding in the sun sign of Leo, the ruler of what keeps our universe together, this is going to show up as life path movements, endeavors, self-awareness, and a lot of self-awareness about your confidence and your confidence at work, and also what does your soul need in order for it to shine bright again. On July 31st, the sun will conjunct Mercury retrograde, both in Leo. Then Mercury will become a morning star, rising in the east before the sun. We will discuss that more on next week's episode when we talk about the new moon in Leo. I just want to give you a little bit of themes, especially since Mercury retrograde is beginning. And we're kind of feeling it this week because, it's the beginning of it. It's in the shadow period, so we're definitely feeling it. General theme, Mercury mix-ups will happen on your way to work or with work. There will be situations where you're pushed out of your comfort zone at work or your daily movements. You may question or be confused about what you really want to do with your life. Past opportunities will come back around. Past conflicts can come back around for a resolution. Your self-esteem and confidence issues may resurface, but they're only coming up so you can work on them and remind yourself and everyone else of the bad bitch you are. This retrograde is a lot of awareness around really looking introspectively, like I said, at your confidence, at your shine, especially when it comes to your workplace and your career path. There will be moments where you don't feel good enough during this retrograde, but these are your unique growth opportunities, I like to say, to sit with the uncomfortable energy and reframe your mindset. Don't distract yourself. I had a great yoga class and conversation with a friend on Sunday, and we were really talking about distraction, how everything is a distraction. Even doing yoga, right? That could be a distraction from getting away from your feelings. So I use this, and I want you guys to really sit with yourself. When you feel uncomfortable, when you feel that energy, when you're feeling low self-esteem, don't distract by going to your phone or, getting a hit on a like or flirting with someone. Just say, I feel uncomfortable right now. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel confident enough. Where is that coming from? Look, my confidence, and I know you guys see it and feel it, it is not a lie. Yes, I'm a little predisposed with my Gemini sun and Mercury because we already kind of naturally pursued this confidence within us, or project, I guess, not pursued. But I've also worked really hard mentally to become the most confident person I can be. I used to say I was the most confident, insecure person, but I'm not really insecure at all. But that came from years of work. Years of mental work that I really worked hard on. Look, I love to look at myself in the mirror, and it's hard not to when you see yourself in every reflection every time I'm doing someone's hair. But here's the difference, and this is where the growth comes. Rob, he will always say to me that the difference between me and other people when it comes to confidence or vanity is that when I look in the mirror, I give myself all the reassurance I need. I don't need anyone else to tell me I'm beautiful. I don't need him to tell me it. And he's like, it's very obvious. And that's what I want for all of you. I want you guys to all look in the mirror and be like, damn, I've looked good, and not care if anyone else tells you it. That's the thing. You can be confident. I'm fucking confident. And again, I'm not going to lie, but I don't need anyone else to tell me it, believe it or not. I mean, I know I post my shit on social media for you guys, but if no one ever told me that I wasn't pretty or all this other stuff, I still know it myself. And that's where you guys need to be. And honestly, even at my least good looking, at my heaviest, at my largest, I would make myself look at myself in the mirror naked and go over every part of my body, especially parts I didn't like, and tell myself good stuff about it. So it is work. And this retrograde is going to show up as confidence work. The confidence can only be gained by being a little bit stuck in the awareness of how you aren't confident. So remember that. On next week's episode, we'll talk much more about the new moon in Leo and rebirthing this confidence, guys. I am back, though. I promise you now. I'm not going on vacation or anywhere, hopefully, I'm not going on vacation, anything major for the next 6 months. So we will be back to it. I love you guys. If this episode resonated with you, if it felt good, the best way to support this podcast is to rate, review it, subscribe, post about it. So many of you guys do that. Send it to a friend. Say, hey, I think you would like this, especially if it's a mix, cardinal, fixed, mutable sign. Please, please, please. Thank you. I know you guys do it for me all the time. I love you all. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next week. Happy Mercury retrograde.